Hello, my name is Brian Kirsch, and welcome to part two of bringing online storage, or the Synology storage frame online here. So what I've done is I've actually taken the unit and I placed it in my basement. I've got some shelving down there, and I did that just because, with the fans and the drive spinning, it's a little bit loud to be upstairs. And so this gives it a nice home. I plugged it into my network, and a couple things have occurred. So I actually downloaded the operating system for the unit. I downloaded that direct from the manufacturer's website. I also downloaded a assist program, and that's what's actually running here in the background. And what that is that's something that goes out and scans your network and looks for these frames, these storage frames. Now, as you notice, I've got several that are running, and a couple of them run different things within my house, but the one that's the .14, that's a new one, and it's DHCP. I would always recommend doing fixed IP addresses for storage. You don't need that moving around on your network. When you plug your Windows machines in, Linux machines, you want it to typically be where it belongs. Okay, you don't want it to move or do anything random like that. Now, bringing this unit online is a little bit unique, and the reason is when I reuse those drives that I put in the last episode, I already had a Synology operating system on there. I had pulled those from some older Synology frames. I had some 2-bay units. So the system, when it connects to it, will recognize there's already an operating system on there and will allow me to do a migration to it. So we're going to have to kind of see how that works, because this being a little bit older unit, it cannot handle the newest version of the storage frame operating system. It's got to be one revision back. So with that being said, it'll be a little bit interesting to see, how it handles that. So all I'm going to do is right click and I'm going to connect to it, and it's just going to give me the standard licensing agreement. And when I connect to it, it brings up a web page, and it's actually now connecting into that Synology frame. And it's saying, hey, welcome back. We see that you already have something. Let's go ahead and migrate. If this was brand new, it would simply give me that option that, hey, brand new, we're going to install from scratch. I'm going to do a migrate, but I'm going to basically do a reinstallation, because I want to wipe the old operating system on there and just basically let it start from scratch. So I'm going to hit the reinstallation. It's going to say, hey, are you sure you want to do this? That's great. And what I'm going to do is let it install now. I can do a manual install and point to the files I have, but we'll let it kind of go from there. And now it's actually pulling down the latest operating system from the vendor and installing it on typically the first 2 disks of this new storage frame. It'll take it it says about 10 minutes. My experience is about 6 to 7. They always give that little bit of that cushion there. This is building the OS, and then you'll have the option to basically wipe the remaining drives, kind of format it, create a RAID group, and we'll get into that in a little bit, once this is all done installing. But basically, then you can customize the storage frame to what you want. Now, when you do something like this, you always got to be careful. Number one, it's going to wipe any data that's typically on these drives, so that's always a kind of a big concern. 2, these tools can go out and search multiple storage frames. You have to make sure you know which one you're wiping out. Okay, that is absolutely critical. Now, I know based on the IP address that it's not one of the current ones I have in my home network. But if you're at a company or a small business or something, you might not know that. You might be connecting to something that's actually in production, something else. So you kind of got to be careful with this, okay? That's why these utilities are a little bit, restricted to the admin level and something you want to be careful with. When you also do stuff like this and you're basically resetting a frame or you're doing anything where you're doing an update, make sure you have access to the latest software. It's not that these aren't hackable. They could be, because they do run a software operating system. But the simple fact is, because of what they are, because they do limited things, they simply do not have the same number of services or applications running that a Windows operating system might have, or even a Linux operating system. So there's a lot less gateways to entry when it comes to hacking these type of things. That doesn't mean they're 100%. You got to keep them up to date and make sure you got all your latest stuff on there. Common sense security, passwords, usernames, all that stuff. But it pretty much will keep itself a lot more secure because it's simply a lot smaller of a footprint. Okay, so make sure you've got the appropriate software. The utilities, they vary from vendor to vendor. I happen to be running on a Mac and just pulled down the appropriate software to do the initialization and the installation. You can see it's already restarting, so it did that install pretty quick. And you're going to find that these things run very efficient. So from a software standpoint, they're going to move for you. They do quite well. So that's kind of getting that operating system built in. Again, typically in the first 2 disks, larger enterprise frames might be on the first 5 disks. It just depends on the manufacturer, and you really got to look that up. But it doesn't chew up much. The software on here is a few hundred meg versus, several gigabytes. So it is really efficient because, again, it's very unique in what it does. So you don't need this massive operating system. So it just chews up a little bit of space on those first couple disks. It's either going to be protected by a RAID 1 or a RAID 5. And there you go. That's how you get it up and running and get everything going. So we'll let this reboot, and then we'll come back and actually start doing a little bit of tour of what's inside. Thank you.